Well, hello guys, and welcome back to DTH Reviews, where we are late to the game every week just for you guys. My name is Joe, and I am joined by my friend Jameson.
Hi!
And today we are talking about Trials Fusion. Quickly, let's talk about the prior games. Have you played Trials and Trials Evolution?
I don't know if I played HD, which was the first one.
Yeah, that's it.
I might have. I don't really remember. I played Evolution, though.
Yeah, me
I didn't play a ton of it, though. I don't know if I was late to it. I don't remember. But I played it, and then eventually I just got to a point where, like, halfway through the hard tracks, I just had no idea how to play the game. I'd never really mastered I never figured out, like, the bunny hopping mechanic, and I eventually just said, okay, I'm not going to play any more Trials anymore again.
that was pretty similar for me with Trials HD,
Yeah.
which is... The first one was really, really, really difficult. I kind of gave up. Actually, I think I only played the demo of the first one.
I think I might have only played the demo as well.
Because it came with quite a few tracks, a demo. It was quite a generous demo.
And it was early Xbox days, sort of
Yeah.
like 2008, sort of, yeah.
So I played a lot of Evolution, but only with friends. I didn't actually own the game myself. Last year in our student flat, one of my flatmates had it, and it was a really fun game to kind of sit around a couch. You know, we had 4 controllers, and we would kind of just play a bunch of weird community maps. The community maps are really awesome in the second game. But prior to the release of Trials Fusion, you told me something which kind of devastated me, and that there is an online multiplayer for Trials Fusion, and that's a big deal because there was in the second one, even though I didn't use it, but I was really looking forward to playing with you and playing with a couple of friends across the interwebs. And I don't know, I know we haven't even started talking about the game itself, but that was off the bat something that really surprised me, that about a lacking feature, that there was no online multiplayer. I know, didn't you say that you're not really a Trials multiplayer person?
Yeah, I hadn't... The Trials for me is the single player, in particular, like, the harder tracks, just, like, figuring out how to do each jump. It's like a puzzle platformer. That's what Trials is for me, not the... I mean, the multiplayer goofiness is sort of just a bonus, and I'd only played Evolution's multiplayer maybe 2 or 3 times. It didn't really do anything for me because everyone's so much better, and I just get stuck at the back, and it didn't really do a thing for me. So yeah, I wasn't bothered, but I totally understand why you were bummed about it, because I was kind of curious to try some multiplayer with other people, but I wasn't heartbroken like you were when they found out there was no multiplayer, or no online multiplayer. There's still local co-op multiplayer.
Let's quickly talk about that. We played on PS4. We played just the single player for a few days, which we'll talk about in a second. But my flatmate, again, the same flatmate, got it on his 360. So I was, looking, it doesn't look as nice, which we'll talk about in a second, but I was looking forward to sitting down on the couch and playing a few maps with him, and we couldn't find any local maps. And I should correct myself. There is about, when you first start the game, there's about 6 or 7 local maps you can play in the easy and medium range. And so we just presumed that because he hadn't advanced with his campaign career, that they hadn't unlocked. But he's golded all the the hard levels. He's done it all, and there are still only 6 or 7 maps that you can play. So we went on to the online community maps, and we couldn't find a single one that was multiplayer. And I'm just kind of confused about what they're going to do about this. Are they going to release multiplayer later? Like, why can't I play with people? Red links? I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, I know they have said, I think they're going to be putting out some sort of like tournament mode. I'm not really sure. They have said they are going to be adding in online multiplayer, or some sort of multiplayer functionality later on, but I'm not really sure what that entails. Yeah, so that's weird that there aren't a lot of local tracks to play on either. That's surprising.
Yeah, it was just.
But
the
community stuff also, like getting maps from the community, you might have to wait a little while for that stuff. I mean,
yeah, I think I'm just gonna be patient. I'm gonna wait a little bit. I'm sure this game it's one of those games that kind of flourishes after a few months when the maps start rolling. And if you're right and Red Links do bring out some sort of multiplayer pack, then, in a few months I will probably have no complaints. But should we move on to the stuff that we actually did play?
Yeah, the core of the game.
Yeah, which is the single player career. This is my first ever career in Trials that I've ever played. I've only ever played community maps on Trials. Evolution was just for fun. We just played it with friends for fun. So this is the first time I've ever played any Red Links maps. and actually tried to get good at the game instead of just playing really wacky and funky maps. And I actually had a really good time. I was kind of surprised. I don't know, like when comparing the, let's say, graphical style of Evolution to Trials, you know, if you haven't seen any footage, you're seeing it now. It's gone all futuristic.
Welcome to the future.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all. I thought it was fine. I like the style. I know it's really, really different from the kind of the rustic,
sort of grungy
grittiness, of the second one, Evolution. Yeah, but I like it. I think it looks really nice on the PS4. And it doesn't take my breath away, but it looks clean and shiny, and I like the graphical style.
I really like how it looks. I agree. It's sharp and clean, and it was sort of a nice. I've said it before, but like games that are kind of dark and gray lose me kind of quickly, and this is like really bright and colorful, and I like that. But it also, there is so much art in that game. Like every single level looks completely different from every other level, which was probably the most surprising thing. And I think there was similar amounts of variety in Evolution. I just don't remember it as well, but that was the most surprising thing about how it looks, is just how much art there is in this game, which like unique art, and so few assets are reused from level to level. That was the most surprising thing about all of its visuals.
Some really nice backdrops on some of the levels.
And some batshit crazy stuff happening in the backdrops sometimes.
Yeah.
There's sort of this weird like universe, almost story that you can kind of get from the backdrops combined with the weird voiceover stuff from the AI people talking to you. All that stuff is really, really bizarre as well.
The talking about the weird AI voiceover stuff. Did you have any idea what was happening? Because I'm not sure if it was like a glitch, but for some reason whenever the AI was talking to me, if I ever bailed while they were talking to me, it would just stop and it wouldn't restart for me.
I don't know. I think that's just the way
that might have been a glitch, maybe?
Triggered. Like, sure. If you crash halfway through, you know, between checkpoints and she's talking to you and you hit, you know, go back to last checkpoint, she just stops and it doesn't repeat itself, which was kind of distracting. But at the same time, I mean, for the first sort of like 3 or 4 worlds, I was paying attention to what she was saying, and it was nonsense and crazy and weird and kind of funny. But then after a certain point, you know, sort of into the later medium tracks and the hard tracks, I don't have time to listen to her. I got to play these tracks. I got to bunny hop, you know, and after a while I just muted her completely, or after I got beaten the campaign, you know, whatever, however that is. I think it's like beat the last hard track or whatever. I just muted all voiceover, because restarting a checkpoint 50 or 100 times and her saying like, "Hi, welcome to Trust. Hi, welcome to. Hi, welcome to. Hi, well," and it's just like, you need to shut up, woman. I'm trying to play this game. So after a while, I just turned her off and stopped paying attention. But that stuff was, I don't know if there was some sort of, I don't know if there's a story, but there's some weird stuff.
In the last level,
happening.
I think it's like she was starting to become human or something.
I think so, yeah.
I don't really.
Trials has always been kind of crazy in some weird ways, and I like that they added a little more to it, but it did get annoying after a while. Yeah. I remember when you started playing, you said that it felt touchier and more fidgety than the previous Trials games. Did that?
I thought so, but the thing is, I didn't play Evolution enough to be able to, you know, accurately quote on that. But yeah, I thought it felt more sensitive. Personally, I thought it felt different.
I was curious about that. I was wondering, like, did they actually change any of this? Because it had been a while. It had been like a year or two. So I went back and booted up Evolution, and it handles 100% exactly identically.
Oh, yeah. Really?
I went into a hard track on Trials Fusion, or on Trial Evolution, and had absolutely zero issues making the transition. So,
see, I thought maybe they might alter it just a little bit so that people who come back to the game, they buy this game after playing Evolution, they just have a little, you know, a new element of challenge. Maybe they have to adjust the sensitivity. I kind of presume that they would alter the physics a little bit so that people who come back can't just breeze through all the hard and extreme tracks. That was kind of my assumption. So it didn't bother me, but I guess people who are already experts at the second game are just gonna kind of blow through this one, aren't they?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I will never figure out how people get so good at this game, because I don't have the I don't have like the coordination or anything to do some of these tracks with the skill and speed that seemingly a lot of people have figured out for Trials. So I don't know I don't know how someone will feel about. I think changing the handling would have probably been a bad thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Because the core handling is really good, and it would have probably messed with things to change it. So I mean, like the new stuff that they added, we should mention, they added an ATV, which is like really heavy, and you only have to use it for a few levels, and then you should never use it again because it's impossible to maneuver. And then the other thing they added was FMX trick system, which...
Yeah, which you suck at though, unfortunately. It's a shame about that you suck at it.
No, I'm really good at that. I figured out the FMX trick system.
Should we tell the story? Okay, so the FMX system is the new game mode where you kind of you flip around, you can do some tricks with the right analog stick, and it does actually have quite an element of difficulty because your body flinging through the air does actually affect the momentum of the bike, so it does take a bit of getting used to and adjusting to actually land the tricks well. But I remember I'm playing it, and you were on Skype, and you were like, I just managed to get like 7th in the world on one of these tracks, and I was like, shut up, what are you on about? And you were like, yeah, I'm 7th in the world, and I'm like, what are you on about? You're 7th in the world. And yeah, well, I don't know what to say. For some reason you're really good at it. I don't get why.
I figured out the FMX system. It's a weird thing to figure out, and it's kind of not the best system because you have to be really precise to hit some of the tricks with your thumbs, and you have to control both your bike and the player, and that stuff isn't always great, but I figured it out. I mean, it's like, I think, well, let's just say I've done well on every FMX drive. I don't want to brag about it, but
yeah,
it's the only thing that I really definitely figured out, though I did figure out finally how to actually bunny hop, and some of the later mechanics on the hard levels, you really have to figure those things out, and I did, and I really enjoyed. I think the part of the game that I enjoyed the most was the sort of later medium difficulty and earlier hard stuff, where it's doable. Your first run you complete it with like 30 retries and 2 or 3 minutes time, and then you say, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm just going to run this track until I have it like muscle memorized, and then I'm going to run it and do a good run and put up a really good time. And that was where I enjoyed the game the most, was in that sort of just starting to get really difficult levels where you have to really learn how to move your bike around, and that was the stuff that I enjoyed the most throughout.
I completely agree. The easy to medium levels, I wouldn't say I disliked them, but they didn't really do anything for me. I was just kind of holding down the right trigger and kind of wiggling my bike around and just kind of having a look around. But as soon as I actually had to start, figuring out how to do the advanced movements and practicing specific segments of levels, that's when I really started to enjoy the game, and it kind of felt a bit more rewarding. So that's kind of like when we were talking earlier about that they hadn't altered the mechanics from Evolution. I was just the only reason I was surprised is because to me the most satisfying part of the game is getting good at it. And for people who are returning to the series and have already mastered it, I just wasn't sure if there'd be much for them, if you know what I mean. But obviously we are not those people, so we can't talk for them. But yeah, that was my favourite part of the game, was kind of finally getting to grips with all the advanced movement and the bunny hopping and succeeding in the harder levels. It felt good. It felt
absolutely
really good.
Yeah. And then of course there's the really hard levels and the extreme tracks, which
yeah,
they are so difficult, and like the worst part of those tracks is that you might hit like 4 jumps in a row, and you're like, okay, I got this, no problem. And then you hit a jump where it's like, I have no idea how this is even physically possible, and you just sit there. I've sat there on one track for 20 minutes and did 350 retries on one jump, and you eventually get to that like Joe Pesci rage stage, motherfucking and it's so difficult. And then you look at the #1 player leaderboard, and then you look at that playthrough, and they do the hardest track in the game flawlessly in 35 seconds. And you're like, what? It's just so frustrating, and I will never, ever, if I can complete one extreme track, like, even if it takes me an hour, I will be very happy.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much at the same level of skill, because I walked into my flatmate playing it, and he just golded all the hard levels, and he started breezing through, well, I wouldn't say breezing through the extremes, but he was completing them. And it's just so frustrating.
I know.
To be able to watch people do it so well. You're like, how do you do this? Teach me your skills.
It's also beautiful, though. When you watch someone that's really good at it, you're like, this is truly mesmerizing, and I have no idea how you are capable of such control of your fat fingers, you asshole.
Dancing with the bike.
Oh my god.
Being one with it. Yeah. I am jealous and will continue to work towards that level.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one.
Probably not, though, yeah.
One thing we didn't really talk about is the skill games. It's not a new addition, but I just thought if we're only covering the campaign because multiplayer hasn't really been fleshed out, we might as well just talk about... Because we talked about FMX, the main career, and then there are the skill games where you... how do you describe the skill games? It's kind of like an abstract task.
Yeah, and it's like you have one thing to do, like you have to hit this jump and fly really far, and whoever lands furthest gets the most points. Stuff like that.
I hate them, man. I hate all of them. I really hate skill
so
I hate the skill games so much.
It took so long to figure out the first skill game. I'm like, how do you go more than 5 meters? I don't understand. Yeah, and going back to Evolution, there are a lot of really, really crazy skill games in Evolution.
Yeah.
And there feels like there's really not that many in Fusion. There's like, I think 1 skill game per sort of world, basically, and there's only 7 worlds or 8 worlds. So there wasn't as much of that stuff as I was hoping for, and I do kind of enjoy the skill games just because they're really bizarre most of the time, and sometimes just like impossible to figure out. I have no idea how to do it. Yeah. Now the last thing that I think should be brought up is value, which is always important, obviously.
Yeah.
It's $20, no matter the platform. There's also a $40 version that includes the season pass. They're going to do a year of DLC. I think $20 is too much.
Yeah.
Like, it may be appropriate because games are more expensive to make now. $20 seems $20 seems to be becoming the average, the normal cost for a smaller game. But $20, there is definitely not as much stuff from the get-go as there was in Trials Evolution. Like, there are less campaign mode or less campaign tracks and less skill games, and for another $5 more to get less content than you got with Evolution, and the fact that it's basically identical to the last 2 games might be a bit of it might be difficult for some people to say, like, why should I get this at full price? Unless you haven't really played the previous games or didn't really get into them, then I would say it's really worth it. Or if you just want more Trials games, like, this is exactly like the previous 2 games, and if you're down for paying $20, that's cool. But I think $20 is too much.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm still hanging on to my angst when it comes to the multiplayer aspect of the game. I think maybe if you hold off and you invest in Trials Fusion when the community has fleshed out some maps, and maybe I don't know what they've got planned for the multiplayer, but maybe if you can at least play with your friends over the internet, or at least have a lot of maps to play with your friends on your couch, then maybe it's worth investing in. Currently, right now, I agree with you. I think it's a bit overpriced. Yeah. I think that about wraps it up. This was my first proper Trials experience, as I said before, so I got quite a lot out of the campaign, more than I was expecting to. I liked the VMX edition. For the very small amount of multiplayer maps there are, me and my friends did play them, and it was kind of funny to just kind of flip around on your bike and try and land crazy tricks on the easier maps. So, although the FMX maps are kind of limited, I think just being able to do tricks on your bike will be funny when you're playing with your friends. It's a very small little element, but I think it will be good in the long run. Skill games, not my thing, but overall, I'm still pretty pissed with the multiplayer. I'm gonna be honest. There's a lot of angst about that, and I am looking forward to... Well, I'm just hopefully going to be looking forward to them, adding the multiplayer component. But it is going to affect my score. It is going to affect my score because I wanted to play multiplayer. I wanted to play with my friends this game, and I couldn't do that. So I'm still gonna give it a 3 stars. I enjoyed the game, but I don't think they should have released it without the multiplayer component being fleshed out, because I think it's the best part of the game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So I'm gonna give it 4 stars because I don't give 2 shits about the multiplayer.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the core of the game for me has always been the puzzle platformy parts of it, where you just figure out how to properly play through these levels, and that stuff is really good. And like you said, it was sort of the first Trials game that I've also really gotten into, and I have had a ton of fun with it. I don't know, like we said earlier, it might be too much to ask $20 for it. It all depends. I think you should buy it if you know what you're getting into, and So yeah, I very much enjoyed it. And that main menu song is so good.
Well, yeah, sure, let's go with that.
It's better than that rap song from Evolution.
yeah, probably. Okay, so that wraps up another episode of DTH Reviews. Thanks a lot for watching yet again, guys, and we'll see you next time.